Well, hello everybody. We're at another live Coffee with Mike. I'm here with Emily Cree. Here, I stumbled over that.
Yep.
Got really excited because the Wi-Fi wasn't working for 2.5 seconds. Here with Emily Carillo with New Mexico Dream House, a real brokerage here in San Juan County, and we're doing another Coffee with Mike, discussing what bugs you, things that you as a real estate broker. Which I'm learning those terms are very different in different states, and we have to keep an eye on that. So you as a real estate broker, what bugs you, what things you have that buyers and sellers are not asking. So I would jump right into it. I could ask questions, or do you have something that you would want to jump right into and start talking to the 12s of people that I have that follow me? 12s, yes.
Ask questions.
Okay, questions are good. You had a really interesting interaction this week that you told me about. And it was a buyer interviewing brokers. Yes. And they were interviewing multiple brokers. And that was astounding because in our industry, most of the time, people get connected with a real estate broker that they know, and then they just go with it. They don't go interview multiple, because there's now a document that in the NAR system called the Buyer's Broker Agreement that people are signing as buyers to work with brokers exclusively. Right. So tell me about this interaction. Tell me why it worked for you, why it surprised you, why you guys won out on talking to these people and were able to get a deal going.
So I mean, a lot of times when people are, especially buyers, are starting to look for homes, they find a home that they think they like. Okay. They call the number on the sign, or they call their aunt because their aunt's a realtor. Right. Or just somebody they know. Okay. Because they want in the door. That's really what the end game is. They want to see the house. Okay. The buyer broker agreement changed it where we now have to have a signature stating, hey, these are my duties. Okay. And this is what I owe you. This is the term of it. This is how I get paid.
Now, when you say my duties, this is your duties as a broker.
As a broker. Okay. Correct. Yeah. As a realtor.
Okay.
A lot of times you call the number on the sign. They're like, yeah, we can get you in. I'm going to send this over, sign it. We'll set up the appointment. Okay. And they don't go over what you're agreeing to. Okay. So earlier in the week, we had a call for a buyer that was like, we are interviewing buyer brokers. Okay. Doesn't happen very often. Right. Because
I can't say I've ever actually heard of that happening. Right. So it's a first for me to have heard it from you. I'm like, okay, sounds cool.
But it makes sense. Like, it's a huge purchase. You want to make sure who you're working with, they know what they're doing. Okay. And what services they provide. It's just like selling your home. You should be interviewing several brokers to sell your home. Okay. Why aren't buyers doing it? So they came in and they asked really good questions about how we negotiate, how we represent them, and how we communicate. That was one of the biggest things that I took away from it. Okay. They were, she was like, I'm straight to the point. I don't want the fluff. I don't want all of that, but I don't want to not feel like I'm getting communication. Right. If I text you, I want an answer back, but I don't need you to make me feel above and beyond and overly good about what I'm doing. I want the information. Okay. So yeah, it was nice to be interviewed in order to be able to provide my value. Right. Because signing that agreement, it's legally binding, saying that I get paid at the end of this, and these are the duties that I should be giving you. Right. If I'm not, you can hold me accountable.
Okay. Perfect. So I guess, why aren't people interviewing more? Why aren't people going around when they're interested in property? Why aren't they trying to find that broker, that realtor that's going to, give them that service or show them that service? Why are we surprised by people interviewing for a buyer's broker?
I think a lot of it is just because how it's structured. Like, they think they want to get in the house, and the first person that answers the phone is going to get them into the house. Right. Where they're not stopping and being like, okay, do we actually want to move forward with this person? Okay. They want to see the house. They don't care the next step. Right. Where if they reverse that and interview brokers, we can help find the right house. Okay. We can still go show you that house. Sure. Absolutely. But let's go beyond that. How are we going to actually represent you?
Okay. And I think in as this is developing, we're learning that the industry is changing, because in the past it used to be, hey, can I go see this house? They'd let you in the door because their name was on the sign. You'd go look at it, and then the conversation is, well, if you want to look at more, let me know.
Right.
And then that would be it. So people were just kind of looking and window shopping houses. And now I think people don't like that commitment right off the bat. So they want to see, they're curious about properties. They'll go see houses, but if they're just window shopping, is there a better way for them to do that? Or what are your thoughts?
Interviewing the brokers, she was like, obviously we are going to want to do this long term. Our goal is to get into a house.
Okay.
But we don't want to go and look at 40 houses with somebody that we don't get along with, or isn't aligned with what our communication style is, with what our values are.
Okay.
If I want a house with really bright lights in it and you keep showing me houses that are dark and dingy,
right,
I don't want to continue working with you.
Okay. So these people were looking for someone who could meet their specific needs, who could really listen to what they're looking for,
right,
maybe even go beyond their description, say, well, it sounds like you want this, even though you're telling me something slightly different, and you may have an idea for them.
Right.
Now that may be the difference. There's committed buyers. There's ones that are like, I am going to buy a house. Then I think that the previous level, those window shoppers, the ones that are curious about a property, those are the ones that, maybe don't want to commit to it all. I mean,
with the new form, there's a level of commitment, regardless, whether it's that one address or we look at 40 to 50 houses.
Okay.
You want somebody, I think you want somebody to represent you, whether you're window shopping or not.
Okay.
Because you may be window shopping, and 3 months down the road from now, somebody calls me and says, hey, I have this house. I'm going to think of you and be like, hey, this couple wanted this house. I'm going to reach out to them.
Okay. So
just because you're window shopping doesn't mean that I'm not consistently looking out for what you're looking for.
So big question that maybe nobody asks, does that cost any money? Like if I say, hey, I'm in the market for a house, let's sign an agreement, and then for 3 months, we don't find a house, have I had to spend any money as a buyer?
No.
Okay.
No. So personally, I do not charge for showing houses, but in that agreement, it does state how I get paid. And that's what's nice about the agreement, is it's very upfront.
Okay.
It states how I get paid, what the commission is, and how we go about getting that. Most of the time, we do get paid at closing.
Okay.
There are certain situations that it's a little bit different as far as that goes. But if you don't buy anything, I don't get paid.
Okay. So it would be a good idea for anybody who might be interested in buying a house for them to shop around brokers first, and then talk to those brokers, figure out who's going to meet their needs, who clicks with them, and jives, because sometimes they may be a great realtor, but the personalities are just friction.
Right.
I've seen that before. I've heard that before in a deal. I'm like, well, you picked this realtor. Why are we having? I just don't like their personality.
And a lot of times it's not that they necessarily picked them. It's they saw this house and they're like, we want to go and check it out.
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, when you want to go and check it out, you're calling the listing broker.
Okay.
But then, which is fine, you can call the listing broker.
Sure.
But the listing broker is also representing the seller. So that gets hairy.
Yeah.
You want somebody to represent you.
Right.
You want to make sure that your needs are being met.
So they have your best interest at heart. So that way they're like, look, we can walk away from this house, and the only people we're disappointing is each other because we didn't get this house.
Right.
I'm not disappointing a buyer and a seller that I represent, and I'm torn between two people I'm going to piss off.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Now we've had some conversations back and forth, and we've talked about quality of realtors, and that's just been it's come up a lot. I've interviewed a lot of realtors on and off camera, and that same theme is woven through these interviews I've had as far as quality of realtors. Why is that such a big topic, or why is it a topic that keeps coming up when a lender talks to realtors? It's like, no, there's other realtors. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Like, why is that a thing?
Because it is a struggle, because we deal directly with them.
Okay.
And if going into it, a lot of times how the other person does business.
Okay.
Somebody that does business consistently is much easier to work with than somebody that's overly busy or has the peaks and valleys of real estate and that sort of thing.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So as a buyer or even as a seller, would that come back to me? Would I be worried about that on my end as far as that realtor goes? If they're not, because it sounds like a lot, just realtor to realtor, you guys are annoyed with each other. So when you guys are annoyed with each other, to me as a buyer or a seller, would I have to worry about that?
You shouldn't.
Okay.
In my personal opinion, you shouldn't, because that is, I deal with them.
Okay.
I deal with their emotions. I deal with their strategies. I deal with, you pay me to be cool, calm, and collected to give you the information that you need without the emotion.
So us in the industry, we talk bad about each other and we're like, oh my gosh, this person's so difficult to work with. But then to our consumers, we're like, it's fine. We can handle it. You don't even need to know about it or worry about it.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And same thing with a buyer, right? Or a seller. I mean, I want to hear your emotions and feelings and all of that.
Sure.
I'm the sounding board.
Right.
I'm not going to let that seep into the contract.
Okay.
So
that makes sense. Okay. A couple other notes. We had talked about a lack of oversight in our industry. I mean, it kind of goes back to that quality conversation. Give us your pointers on that, your thoughts on the lack of oversight. Because, I mean, you guys have contracts for days. I mean, it's a ton of paperwork. And then add to a lender our paperwork as we're trying to pre-qualify and get people into that same contract. Mm-hmm. Tell us about this oversight, because I feel like with all that paperwork, we seem to have tons of oversight.
There should be.
Okay.
But you look at a contract and the way I fill it out, it's the exact same form.
Okay.
I would fill it out differently. You would fill it out differently. Sure. Everybody else in the office, they have their own ways of doing it. There's the required fields, but it's not mandatory.
Okay.
So
they're required fields, but not mandatory.
Right. Because you have to go and fill them in.
Okay.
So rather than, a lot of people will just leave them blank. Our forms, our purchase offer contract is like 22 pages.
Right.
So you're excited, you're writing an offer, you're blowing through it, filling in the date that you're closing, the purchase price, but then you miss the small details. You miss a checkbox here or a checkbox there. Okay. You misspelled a name.
Sure.
And nobody's really looking over that.
Okay.
Each office kind of has their own compliance department that should be checking it, but there's not really a standard of how it gets done.
Right. It's just done eventually.
Right.
If it's completed.
We can do an
corrected.
addendum letter later to get those corrected.
Well, and we use those all the time. We see something that's slightly incorrect or something that's not matching up. And we as lenders say, hey, in order for this to make sense for our underwriting or for how all of our paperwork has to match, we just ask for an addendum. Right. And you're just looking at having that quality completed up front.
Right.
You're wanting it to be done proper and to a degree perfect up front. Mm-hmm. Then what would the addendums really be necessary for? Why do you think, I mean,
they really, I mean, unless you're changing a price or changing something major in the contract, you have to extend a date, something like that.
Okay.
An addendum makes sense.
Okay.
But a misspelling of a name or a missing date to begin with, those are just small details that should be done up front.
Okay.
I mean, it's a legally binding contract. You want it fully filled out.
Okay.
So
just to have nice quality cleanliness through it. So all we focus on is really the transaction itself when something comes up during, and you called it the inspection period. And I think in my mind, I also call it like the discovery period, because we're also inspecting things like title. What if something comes back on title? So we want the actual transaction itself to be the one thing that the addendums trigger, not the original contract, not the original setup. So then,
and it really presents the offer itself better.
Okay.
And it goes to the quality of the offer, essentially. If I give you something clean that you know is your dates are there, your names are spelled correctly, you're not missing any signatures, you're going to have more faith going forward that, oh, she paid attention to detail.
Okay.
Same thing with your buyer. My buyer is going to be like, okay, she didn't miss any of this.
Okay.
And mistakes happen.
Sure.
But the cleaner it is up front, the smoother the transaction is going to be.
So what about the language? Like we have the same contract comes in and everybody has the same language. One of the big ones that I have that people ask me, realtors ask me constantly, is how do we ask about the closing costs or the seller's concessions towards the closing costs? And I feel like I have to repeat myself the same verbiage every time. Why is that such a variation? Why am I having to like, no, it's this way every time? And I feel like I've been saying it for 17 years.
Right.
And then I work with realtors who I thought they were working in the same industry for the same amount of time.
17 years.
17 years. Actually, my favorite, everybody works 30 years. In my 30 years, I've never had this happen. Like, you're like 28, man. Like no. But when it comes to that verbiage, why the variations in it all? Do you have anything to speak to that, or have you seen any differences? And does that make a difference in how an offer is presented from a buyer?
I think that's one of those that like it seems scary because it's language from you guys.
Okay.
So we want to make sure that if we're asking for closing costs, that it can be used for everything that you need.
Okay.
And not get into like the personal property is a really big one.
Yeah.
Like they're leaving a washer and dryer. That I've seen that has to be worded specifically so it doesn't get flagged by your underwriters.
Okay. That does bring up another point. I mean, when it comes to personal property, the
Corvette never stays.
What about the lawnmower though? Like, is a lawnmower something that I could buy or I could get with the sale of the house? As a buyer, if I look at this 3-acre parcel and they've got 2.5 acres of grass, my push mower is not going to do it for me, but they aren't going to take this riding lawnmower with them.
Yeah. When
I'm looking to buy a house, like, can I go into the contract as far as your experience goes? Not from a lender's perspective, but from a realtor, how would I look at that as a buyer?
So in our contracts, there's a page with a little grid that says personal property.
Okay.
And there's like 80 things marked in there. There's also a box that says other with some lines on it. In my experience, if you put the lawnmower in other, it's fine.
Okay.
It gets through your underwriting department. If you try to add it in an addendum, they question it.
Interesting. Huh. Now, what are they questioning? Because again, I'm only one lender. There's lenders with a bunch of different underwriters and look at different things. Why would they question it? I mean, they're just giving me a lawnmower.
It's because it's not part of the real property sale.
Okay.
It would be like personal property.
Okay.
Should be handled outside of the contract most of the time.
Okay.
Bribery type of thing. Like, oh, if you buy my house, then I'll leave you this Corvette.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. So bribery would be the normal terms. In my brain, as soon as you started talking about it, the guideline came up: inducement to purchase. Right. Which again is just fancy talk for bribery, or selling a feature that's really not part of the house. Right. Because we're looking at real estate. Well, what about furniture? I mean, you're like, I love how this house is staged and how it looks. Oh no, this is actually their furniture. They're just leaving it or they're just selling it. How do we as buyers go, oh my gosh, I love it, I want it all as a house? Is furniture part of the real estate, or is that personal property as well?
It's typically personal property.
Okay.
We do see some houses, especially now with the Airbnbs, they're like, furniture is negotiable. Okay. I have not personally run into it where I've had to deal with that. So I don't know how lenders see that. Okay. But again, it goes back to that box that there is different furniture items that can stay.
Interesting. I think that guideline of inducement to purchase, we'd have to look at that and break it down. And again, a lot of times it's open to interpretation. Right.
And a lot of it is, how do you value your furniture? Sure. Like, does that actually work into the loan price?
Generally, no. And again, I'd have to go fresh on the guidelines, but a lot of times if there's an inducement to purchase, something that's not outside of typical, then a lot of times they actually adjust the value of the house, or they adjust the purchase price, which is going to cause a whole heck of a lot of problems in the numbers.
Right.
So
because appraisers they see our contract, so I'm sure when they walk in, they're like, okay, this is an X amount of furniture. So I don't know if they look
I don't know. That'd be a great question for an appraiser. I haven't had that as a question come up where I asked an appraiser for their advice on, hey, what are we doing with this? Like, is furniture part of the valuation?
Because what if you go in and you sell all of that furniture? Then your house would essentially be less than what you actually purchased it for.
And yeah, it'd be some research we'd have to get done and maybe interview an appraiser. But they're very busy. They're hard to get a hold of sometimes. I'm actually not allowed to talk to them on a personal level sometimes. It's funky. What other thoughts? Anything come up while we were talking? Anything that you wanted to bring up on it? One of the notes that I had from our conversation was earnest money and option fees or time off market fees. I don't know if that's something you would want to jump into.
I haven't looked at that contract. I saw that it was out this week, but I actually haven't read into it. So
we have a new contract in New Mexico that discusses earnest money, and then there's another fee that they've labeled it.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Got it. I know there's some other places. Texas does have a option fee, and then New Mexico used to have a time off market fee. But I think that
this is kind of replacing that.
Supposed to go away.
Yeah.
What's the point of those? Because earnest money is one fee, and then the new contracts are coming out with an additional fee from the buyer that's going towards the seller.
Correct.
What's the difference between those fees? Why are those costs a thing?
I mean, your earnest money is good faith funds. Essentially, you put that down, get everything going. It's held in escrow. These option fees, from what I understand, is, I don't want to say enticing, but if you offer the seller something to, hey, I'm going to give you $50 while I go through this inspection period to show you that I'm serious.
So almost like a non-refundable deposit.
Right.
It's like, hey, I'm looking at your house. I may not buy your house. I really think I want to buy your house. But here's $50 for
regardless
the
putting up
the inconvenience of having your house locked up in a contract with me.
Right.
So it gives a little bit more incentive to the seller to let the buyer do their thing, and it makes that offer more attractive. Because if I say, well, I'm going to put $500 earnest money and then $500 as the option fee, then the seller's like, cool, I just made $500.
Right.
As far as the buyer, is there any risk to the buyer for either of those funds? At any stage, there can be, maybe some free stages and then no free stages. Why is the earnest money not enough? Why is the earnest money not the non-refundable fee?
I haven't really looked into it. I don't want to get too far in the weeds because I really don't know. Earnest money in New Mexico, as long as you hit your deadlines in your contract, most of the time the buyer will get it back. As long as you hit those deadlines. And there are several of them in the contract. They're built in there to protect the buyer. The deadlines are nice for the seller because they're like, okay, as long as we're hitting these, we know the buyer is moving forward in good faith. So the earnest money, I mean, typically there's like a 3-day period before closing that you have to get lending done. So you're tying this this property up for 30 to 45 days. Hoping lending is doing everything that they need to do, but they have until 3 days before closing to
deny the file, be done. Which is just the worst stories. Those are the worst stories. It's we were ready to close, everybody was happy, and then the lender's like, oh, by the way, you can't buy this house. Most frustrating thing ever. When I hear that story, I get sick to my stomach, and we pushed, hey, let's get to denial as quick as possible, so that way we know we're good. We're not going to
everybody the frustration.
Right. So going back, I mean, that circles all the way back to the buyer broker negotiation conversation. When you're interviewing a buyer and you're wanting to see, if you want their business, which I would assume you want almost all the buyers you can get. When you're selecting buyers and knowing, how far along in the process or important things as far as pre-qualification, pre-approval, with a lender, I mean, do you have a filter that you score those people with, or that you maybe push them down the pipe, the timeline as far as their shopping progress? I mean, what's your filter when it comes to looking at lenders? Because a lot of times the trigger is, hey, I want to look at a house. Do you require them to be pre-qualified before, pre-approved before? What's your go through? What's your standard process?
I like to have a conversation with them.
Okay.
A lot of time, especially now, you can text in and have a text conversation. But if I can get you on the phone and ask you a set of kind of pre-qualification questions, see what you know about the buying process. If you don't know anything about the buying process, I'm going to try to get you into the office to explain it a little bit more. So you know what you're getting into. Because you might like the house, but do you know that you need funds? Or do you need funds? Did you just inherit $50,000 from grandma that you can use from your down payment? So I try to question all of that. I'll go into a house. One house, essentially, because it really is easier to meet somebody in person and have a conversation with them. And then from there, I do push them over to a lender because that's information that we need. If you say you want an $1,100 payment, we're not going to go look at a $500,000 house.
Right. Unless we have the down payment to get us down to that $1,100. And those are the conversations you and the lender have with that same buyer. Okay.
And then, I mean, from there, we strategize best case scenario in how to make the strongest and cleanest offer.
Okay. Interesting. Like my mind's whirling, trying to, find questions, find thoughts. Do you have any questions? Anything that I can? Nothing for me to scramble on. Okay, great, perfect. Wonder if we have any comments hiding in there. I can't tell from this far. I have no eyes. Nothing so far that I can see.
I can't see anything.
That's all right. We'll get through it. And if we have some comments, I'll maybe try to address those in a later post. We may be able to do some Q&As that's not so live. That way, if we need to get some research done, we can. Let's see here. What else would be great questions that would be good on live that don't put you on the spot? Overstepping. I've heard this from lenders as well as realtors, as well as appraisers. Overstepping or stay in your lane. What does that mean? Just as for a buyer, what does overstepping or staying in their lane? What does that mean? Or a seller?
Right. Know what you are responsible for and don't try to do somebody else's job. I'm not going to, we'll use a pre-qualification. I'm not going to tell you what a house would be. Like if you said, I want an $1,100 payment, cool. I will respect that, but I have no idea what that means for you because your financial situation is completely different from mine. It's completely different from everybody else's. I'm going to push that back on you.
Me as the lender.
Correct. You as the lender. So I'm not going to guess and say, oh, I think we can go and look at this house, or hey, there's this house that's, I know your budget is $350, but it's $375. Let's go and look at it. Because that's not the situation that you want to be in. If you tell me, you as the lender call and say, hey, I have them pre-approved for $375. I ran the payment scenario, but they're more comfortable at $350. And I will look at houses between $350 and $375.
You as the realtor.
You as the realtor. Me as the realtor, yes. To see if there's anything that fits their needs a little bit better. Because we know we can get there. But I'm not just going to say, oh, I know you can afford this. So then what do you do? If you know a house, their budget is more comfortable at $350. The lender has said that I've got them pre-approved to $375. So when you find the house that's at $368 and you're like, this house meets every single one of their needs except for their budget, what's your next step? What do you do in that? Because it meets every single thing but the estimated payment they were hoping for at $350. I send it to them and I say, hey, this checks all of your boxes. We're going to be out looking at houses Saturday anyway. Let's just swing by. So you can feel what this house is. It meets all of your boxes. And then you can compare it to a house that hits 90% of your boxes and see if you're willing to make that jump in monthly payment, or if you're willing to be like, okay, I don't need all of that.
Got it.
So, I mean, I guess that really didn't answer staying in my lane sort of thing, but
it kind of does to a degree, because you're like, hey, we know our lanes. We know that, the pre-qualification goes up to here. We know your budget's comfortable here. So you've already established the lanes with the buyer.
Right.
And then with the lender's the one that's kind of in charge of the numbers. So when you show them the 368 house that's outside of their budget range that they're comfortable with, then I would expect that you're going to push them back to the lender and say, okay, what is the payment on this house entirely? So that way, if they've truly fallen in love with this house, how much of a difference is it going to make? And is it going to be detrimental to their budget?
Right.
And again, like you said, everybody's financial situation is different. We can assume it's not that big of a deal. And we can even do the math and look at how close the math is. But if they truly were tapped out at 350, even though a lender has pre-qualified them, and that happens a lot, is buyers will get pre-qualified for a dollar amount and it'll make them house poor when they buy the house, right? Yes, you can qualify, but you're eating ramen noodle and beans and rice for the foreseeable future.
And that goes into interviewing your buyer brokers because you're going to live there. You know what lifestyle you live already.
Right.
If you want to take a vacation every other week and have a very low maintenance house, I'm not going to live there. So I don't necessarily care, but I need to be able to listen to what you want.
Okay.
So we make sure that we find what you want.
Okay, perfect. What about amongst the industry professionals, right? We've got buyers that are just attached to realtors, like, help me through this because I don't know who my lender is. They're far, far away. These faceless appraisers, these sellers who are evil people that made us scared. So when you're dealing with the industry professionals staying in the lane, what kind of incidences have you run into, or things that make you say that in your head? You're like, stay in your lane or do your job. Like, what are you finding in the industry in that manner?
I don't know that I've really run into it.
Okay.
I can't think of anything that I'm like, you need to stay over there.
Really? Like nothing?
No.
Have you heard horror stories at least? Nothing?
No, because really at the end of the day, in my experience, we all should be working to get to the closing table.
Okay.
And that, I think maybe we need to keep reminding ourselves through when we're dealing with the industry professionals, that that's our end goal.
Okay.
Is to get the buyers to the closing table, or sellers.
Yeah.
So the sellers can move on to their next step. It doesn't really have anything to do with us and our emotions and our feelings. We feel them all and we hear them
we have those feelings, but our feelings don't matter.
Right. Okay. At the end of the day, it falls back on your buyer and your seller of what they want, what fits them the best.
Okay.
I will be frustrated for you.
Okay.
When I get calls that I'm like, that does not make sense. Okay. Why are you saying that? Like, why is the sky falling next week when we haven't even made it through the weekend yet?
Right.
And so that's where I filter that through. I let my client know, hey, this could be coming up, but let's not stress about it or lose sleep about it until we know that it's happening.
So you're mitigating the possibilities and the worry about the possibilities, even though something could be a concern. You're like, we don't know yet, so let's wait till we get to that point.
Right.
And is it because people are starting to pour their hopes and dreams and ideas into the house before we hit those milestones, maybe?
Yep. Okay. And I think, from the realtor side of it, they're trying to spend that check before it even hits their account.
So realtors are already counting on it to close and they're ready to move it.
So their stress of getting paid is filtering into the transaction.
Okay. So you've run into that where it's a lot more tension because the realtors just want the deal to close, maybe almost regardless of everybody else's feelings as far as buyer and seller is concerned.
Right.
Okay. Excellent. Perfect. Well, that was great. I've got nothing else. We'll have to do a lot more of these. And you're not on TikTok, so I can't share this to you. So we'll have to figure some stuff out on other platforms. Are you on Facebook?
I am on Facebook.
Okay, just making sure. If you're one of those anti-social people, then we have concerns.
I'm social, just selective.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us, and we'll get some more information out to you. Have a great day. How do you stop this thing?